I, Nancy, a 35-year-old office worker, since my husband David, who is 2 years younger than me, got transferred, we've been temporarily living with his folks. And I mean temporarily. David seems to want to stay here permanently. But I'm eager to find our own place and get out of my in-laws' house as soon as possible. The reason is, I just don't see eye to eye with my in-laws, especially my MIL.
My MIL has always been pretty snarky even before we got married. But it's gotten worse since we started living together. Just a sec, Nancy. Haven't you gone shopping yet? The supermarket sale is already over.
You can't even shop efficiently, I swear. I'm allowed to work from home at my company. But weekdays I'm working during the day. I can't just go shopping to catch a sale at the supermarket. I've said it many times, I'm working during the day, so I can't go shopping until after 5 p.m.
When I say that my MIL goes, there you go again, acting all high and mighty, she always blames me saying I'm barren, just like always.
David and I don't have any children. We haven't gone into details with the doctor, so we don't know who's responsible. I wanted kids, but considering David's earnings, we couldn't afford expensive fertility treatments. I was already troubled by my MIL's snide remarks before we moved in, but it was bearable when we were living apart. Living in the same house, I'm exposed to her sarcasm, 24/7. My father-in-law doesn't throw direct jabs like she does, but in a different way. He's just as irritating. My father-in-law has this notion that a woman over 30 is an old lady, and now that I'm 35, he treats me as such.
Hey, old lady, pass me the ashtray. What's the point of wearing a skirt? Nobody wants to see an old lady's legs.
If I'm an old lady, I wonder what he thinks of himself at 60. I'm not one to hold my tongue, so every time my in-laws are rude, I talk back. Then they call me fresh, which just makes things worse. The atmosphere at home has become constantly tense, and I'm feeling the strain of living together. After transferring, David has been swamped with work on weekends and business trips, and we couldn't even discuss moving.
Nancy, I've got another business trip this weekend.
Again?
You were just on one recently, weren't you?
The new branch does seem to have a lot of trips.
Before the transfer, his job had overtime, but hardly any work. On weekends or trips.
Can't be helped, right? A new job means new responsibilities.
That may be true, but is it changing too much? Because of this, what was supposed to be a temporary living situation with my in-laws can't seem to end, as we're not finding a new place to move to. What if this turns into us living together permanently? I was afraid of that. But then one day, as I was emptying the laundry from David's bag after his business trip, I found a piece of paper in the pocket of his bag. It was a printout of an online reservation confirmation from a travel website. I thought it was probably a reservation for his business trip flight and hotel. So without much thought, I checked the contents and couldn't believe my eyes. What I found was a printed reservation for a hotel package that included tickets to Disney Sea, and it was for 2 people. The date was yesterday. In other words, the same day David was supposedly on his business trip. Of course, David's company doesn't do business with Disney Sea. They only deal with seafood, although it's sea in a different sense. But you know what? None of that really matters. Basically, it means David faked going on a business trip and actually spent 2 days playing at Disney Sea. The reservation for 2 pretty much confirms that the person he went with was a woman. No doubt about it. While I'm reeling from the shock, I can hear David singing in the bath.
It's a small world after all.
That's a well-known theme song from one of the attractions. He must be recalling his time at Disney Sea and just naturally humming along. That attraction isn't supposed to be at Disney Sea, though. But I guess on a joyous affair of a trip, the rides don't really matter. I was so livid, I thought about storming into the bathroom to confront David. But just then, David's smartphone rang. Overcome with anger and lacking any calm judgment, I answered the call in a rage.
Hello?
For a moment, I heard a young woman's voice, and then the line went dead. No way. I was certain of it. That call had to be from the woman David went to Disney Sea with. In other words, David's mistress. She must have panicked and hung up when she heard a woman's voice after calling David. I checked the call history on the smartphone. David never cared much for security, so his PIN was probably not set properly. guessing it might just be his birthday in 4 digits. The jackpot. The lock was released immediately, but my head started spinning when I saw what was on his phone. There were so many undeniable proofs of infidelity, it was overwhelming. The photo gallery was full of couple shots with a young woman. And every single one was dated on days David was supposedly away on business trips or working overtime. To leave photos of the act was just recklessly careless. I was dumbfounded. Checking the call history again, I saw Mika Yokoyama, so I searched for the same name in the Line Friends list and opened the chat.
I love you, David. I can't wait to be David's wife.
This Mika seemed to be hoping to marry David. Was she a homewrecker? Could she be? As I was pondering, David came out of the shower.
Ah, that's refreshing, said David nonchalantly as he emerged, drying his head with a towel.
I immediately confronted him.
Refreshing? What's so refreshing? It seems like you've been refreshing a lot of things lately, haven't you?
Huh?
Who's this Mika Yokoyama?
Oh.
When I suddenly dropped the name of his affair partner, David visibly flinched.
So it is true, you've been lying about business trips. Actually sneaking off with this Mika Yokoyama woman. Was every business trip and all that overtime all just lies? I can't forgive this.
How? Why do you know what the...
David was shaking as I thrust the phone in his face.
The evidence is all in here, every bit of it, on this smartphone.
You snooped on my phone? Isn't that an invasion of privacy?
The nerve of a guy dripping with such moral bankruptcy to cry about privacy is just laughable.
If you didn't want it seen, you should have set a better password.
Before we got married, I made a certain promise with David. That was to never ever cheat. If you cheat, it's straight to Splitsville. That's what I had declared to Brandon. Of course, my feelings on that haven't changed one bit. There's no way I can continue a married life with a man who lays his hands on another woman.
Let's get divorced.
When I said just that, David surprisingly nodded in agreement.
Yeah, that sounds right.
It was unexpected. I thought there'd be more of a fight. Was he prepared for divorce the moment the affair was uncovered?
Tomorrow, I'll go get the divorce papers. You tell your folks yourself.
Got it?
David's agreement came all too easily, but I couldn't and wouldn't take back what I had declared. But I could and would take back what I had declared. Looks like this is goodbye to married life. I felt a twinge of sadness. The next day, I was out of the house from mourning. I went to get the divorce papers and to take care of some other errands. I didn't get back home until it was completely night. And there at home, my husband and in-laws, all three were waiting for me.
You finally got back, huh? Wondering where you've been wandering off to?
My mother-in-law said with a sneer as soon as she saw me, given that my husband was here, they must already know about his affair and our impending divorce. Wouldn't you think to apologize or say something before starting with the sarcasm? But far from apologizing, my mother-in-law began with something outrageous.
Well, it's fine. Glad you're finally leaving. I didn't want to see your face anymore, so it was good you stayed out until night. What do you mean by that?
I asked as my mother-in-law grinned at me.
Just what I said. I was sick and tired of seeing your face. And here my son finally comes back to us, but you're in the way. Even when I tried to push you out with some tough love, you just sassed back without any charm. So I had no choice but to resort to my last resort, didn't I?
The last resort?
I watched as my mother-in-law smiled slyly.
You know the name of David's girlfriend already, don't you?
Yes, I think it was Yokoyama or something.
Why would my mother-in-law confirm the name of David's affair partner?
Actually, there's this lady named Mrs. Yokoyama in my cultural class at the community center. That girl is just so polite and such a darling, my mother-in-law exclaimed. She's a whole decade younger than you, only 25. With her being so young, she can easily have plenty of kids. Then my mother-in-law shared something unbelievable with me, so I went ahead and introduced David to Mrs. Yokoyama's daughter.
Excuse me?
I was taken aback. I couldn't believe my mother-in-law would say such a thing to me.
You can't be serious, Mo. Did you actually encourage David to cheat?
Oh, encourage sounds so sordid, doesn't it? I merely made an introduction, that's all.
I was completely taken aback by how nonchalantly she talked about her actions. For a mother to lead her own son to infidelity, and to then brag about it to her son's wife, no less. What a dreadful mother she is.
Well, it can't be helped, can it? After all, David is an only child. We need an heir. If you had kids, I was even thinking about starting to consider you part of the family. Yet here you are, never having kids, just working all the time.
Beside my mother-in-law, my father-in-law was nodding along in agreement. So my father-in-law was in on it too.
Got it? That means a woman who's 35 and still can't have kids is just excess baggage. If you understand, then get out now.
With a triumphant look, my Mael pointed her index finger right at me. After a long silence, I finally spoke.
Is that so? I clearly understand your point of view now. I'll leave as you wish. I'll take all my belongings with me.
Yeah, suit yourself. I bet you don't even have much to take, do you? Shall I offer you a ride?
Ignorant as she was, Maya Mael said this with a snicker. But the real laughter will be on my side.
No, that's okay. Don't worry about me. I've already made arrangements.
Huh?
Since I wasn't crying or getting upset, my Mael looked surprised.
And another thing, I already know about you aiding and abetting John's affair.
What?
I sneered at my Mael.
What do you think I was doing out all day today? Just gonna get a divorce form doesn't take that long. I spent the day arranging my move and meeting with Mika Yokoyama.
What? Did you meet with Mika?
John asked me in a panic.
And what if I did? You think I wouldn't have a word with the other woman when I'm cheated on behind my back? When I checked the phone yesterday, I made sure to note her number.
I said with a heavy heart.
Poor Mika, though. When I called her saying I'm John's wife and would like to meet, she was incredibly shocked. It seems you've been lying to Mika about being single, haven't you? I've told her everything.
John, my Mael, and my father-in-law were astounded. It seemed they never imagined I could accomplish so much in just one day.
Mika was utterly devastated when she realized she had been made the other woman without knowing it. And of course Mrs. Yokoyama was furious. At John and Emile too. She's talking about suing the two of them for marriage fraud. I couldn't help but feel sympathetic, so I promised her my full support.
John was quivering like a leaf.
My Mael was in the same boat, of course.
Because there were so many reasons to feel sympathetic. There were so many reasons to feel sorry for Mika. I've decided not to demand alimony from her. Instead, I plan to add that to the amount I'll be asking from you and your folks.
Alimony? Why the heck do we have to pay alimony too?
The father-in-law spoke up in a panic.
Look, if it was just John, fine, but we're not involved.
They seemed to have anticipated their son paying for his affair. But the idea that they'd be billed too seemed totally off their radar. Did they think they'd come out unscathed, just reaping the benefits as if life works that neatly?
Of course, I retorted. Do you not think the emotional distress from the harassment alone is reason enough for a claim?
I brushed it off with a laugh, and the father-in-law just grumbled, going silent.
And have you forgotten what I do for a living? I'm a paralegal, you know. Maybe I should consult with the senior attorney at the firm, see how much we can shake down for alimony.
I've already touched base with the lawyers at the firm today, of course.
Well, what? He stammered.
Just then, we heard the sound of a car pulling up in the driveway.
Ah, here they are.
Hey there, moving service at your door.
I kept my smile as I headed to the front door.
Thank you for coming so late. Sorry for the last minute.
Oh, no problem. We just happened to have a slot open tonight.
It actually worked out for me too. I got to take care of some things, so nighttime is perfect. Well then, please start the work. Oh, watch out for the fragile items, will ya?
As I welcomed them in, several movers clomped into the house and started packing up.
Hey, wait, just a sec.
Following my directions, the movers swiftly wrapped up everything, from my clothes and books, to my computer, and even the appliances in the living room and kitchen.
Hey, you guys, don't take that, please. That's mine.
No, that's not right. These are all my personal belongings that I brought into this house.
When I moved here initially because of my husband David's transfer, the old appliances from my in-laws' place had been long in use. Having a bit of a passion for gadgets, I couldn't stand it and moved all my appliances from the previous apartment. Now it seems my mother-in-law has gotten completely used to the latest appliances and mistook them for her own. Robot vacuums and cordless cleaners, a high-end convection oven that can cook various dishes, an induction cooktop, a tourmaline hairdryer, and an espresso machine.
You're planning to take everything, aren't you? Such audacity.
My mother-in-law lunged at me, but Bob stepped in to stop her.
Mom, it can't be helped. But it's all Nancy's stuff after all.
It seems like David has given up. However, it appears that my mother-in-law hasn't quite come to terms with it yet.
Once you've experienced the excellence of the latest appliances, there's no going back, is there? If you're unhappy, why not just buy new ones? Though, after paying alimony, you probably won't have the money to afford high-end appliances.
While this was going on, the movers quickly loaded the items I directed them to into the truck, tipped their hats to me, and climbed aboard.
Please give me the address for the delivery. I'll be following shortly.
I watched as the moving truck drove off. Then I got into my car. Of course, this car is mine too.
Where's that truck going? Jake asked.
To my condo, of course.
The one I lived in before you were transferred, I replied. The condo I bought when I was single was put up for sale through a realtor when David was transferred. But the asking price was too high, it never sold, and I still hadn't let it go.
The realtor kept suggesting to lower the price, but I'm glad we didn't. Who would have thought it'd come to this, huh?
I chuckled as I buckled my seatbelt.
But maybe deep down I had anticipated this.
Huh?
David looked puzzled.
After all, I set the selling price higher than the market rate, so it wouldn't sell. Just so I could always have the condo to come back to.
Hearing this, David collapsed to his knees.
This heartless woman.
Caught off guard in my moment of triumph, I was shoved to the ground by my shrieking mother-in-law as she charged at me. While I was groaning in pain, she tried to throw a cutting board at me, but suddenly, a black figure slammed into her, and she fell to the ground with a thud.
Thanks, Kuro.
Holding the stray cat, Kuro, I hurried to my new place in the moving truck, fleeing from my mother-in-law. I have no idea why Kuro was there at that moment, but knowing his sense of justice, he must have come to my rescue. I'll treat you to some tuna treats later. Later on, David and I got a divorce. The law firm where I work filed for damages against David and his parents. The boss took on the case for almost nothing, using it as training for the young associates, which I'm truly grateful for. It's reassuring to have the support of seasoned attorneys, even if a rookie is handling my case. My case, the lawsuit involving Mika Yokoyama, wasn't handled by a junior attorney, but by the senior partner himself. Due to its malicious nature, he's pursuing both criminal and civil charges. It's been a while since he's filed a criminal complaint, and he seems quite eager to flex his legal muscles. After paying damages to Mika and my alimony, even selling the in-laws' house won't cover it all. They'll probably be left in crippling debt. The thought of those three facing a life of poverty and debt brings an uncontrollable smirk to my face. Being single now compared to living with those deceitful in-laws and ex-husband feels like heaven. For now, I'm looking forward to a carefree solo life in the apartment with Blackie, the cat I ended up bringing home.